The reason I think that 12-step recovery is amazing is that drugs and alcohol serve as the perfect object for infatuation and obsession. Like if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, it's pretty obvious you've got a problem. There's a distillation of the overt attachment to a material object that's much less obvious if you're obsessed with other people's approval or or getting involved in negative relationships. So like, but the 12 steps will work wherever you apply it on that scale. Firstly, you admit that what you're doing is problematic, that your life has become unmanageable. Second, you come to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity, that it's possible not to engage in that behavior anymore. And third, you make a decision to turn your life and will over to the care of God as you understand God. Now that is where the zeal hinted at in the second step can become compounded, and I know that a lot of people resist and reject 12-step recovery specifically because of the overt and somewhat traditional sounding references to God. That's why, like, when I talk about this program, the first 3 steps become: are you fucked? Could you not be fucked? Are you on your own gonna unfuck yourself? The third step becomes about willingness to accept help, willingness to change. And the rather more overt spiritual aspect of that is brilliantly addressed in 12-step philosophy with the acknowledgement that all of us have a distinct and personal understanding of a higher power, and that nobody has the right to prescribe that to another person. The only thing you need is a conception of a power that is greater than yourself and that is benign and even loving. How I feel that this is practically applied is that in my own life, I've always had a tendency to self-centered introspection, agonizing fractal loops of thought that are inescapable to me. And after a while, after my various gamuts in addiction, my various circuits through addictive behaviors, it became more and more clear that whatever the solution was to my problem, it wasn't going to be found in my head. And I think that's true of you too. Whatever the solution is to this problem of being you, to this sense of anxiety, to this lack of fulfillment, the answer's not going to be found by the answer's not going to be found in your own fucking head. You have to like let new information in. So the third step is being willing to ask for help. And that help can be from a sort of an omnipotent supernatural entity, or it can be from a group of trusted people. It can be from a mentor. Essentially though, it's a willingness to do things differently. So the first 3 steps are: 1, there's a problem; 2, it's possible for problems to change; 3, I on my own will not be able to solve this problem. And that can be a difficult paradigm to accept, even if it's something you've been working for multiple years. For me now, still, it can take a while for me to acknowledge there's a problem, I need to stop. It's possible for that problem to change. This isn't just the conditions of the universe, which will continually reinstantiate and reiterate themselves no matter what I do. It is possible for things to be different. That's where the optimism and hope that's inherent within this problem becomes vivified. It's beautiful after you've been trapped in addictive behavior, or even if you've been trapped in a pattern that you would be reluctant to call addictive behavior. It's beautiful to acknowledge that change is possible. Then the next progression to accepting the possibility of change, being willing to surrender to an alternative method, a different method, to begin taking on a different perspective, that's when you get real relief. Step 3 is an aspect of my own recovery that I continually return to. Normally, when I'm anxious or fearful, there's something that I need to surrender. Often the problem is that I'm taking too much control in a situation. Is that I've nominated myself as my own higher power. I give myself all these jobs in life, you know. I give myself the job of being in charge of my wife's mental health. At different times in my life, I've given myself the job of being in charge of like the British government and the global media. Like, someone's got to do something about this, I'll do it. It's too much pressure for me. I basically find it hard to sit still on public transport. You know, why I'm giving myself the role of bringing about a global revolution is an absolute mystery. 12-step recovery in its early foundational steps. 1, there's a problem. 2, the problem can change. 3, I'm going to need help. That tool is deceptively simple because it's an invitation to let go of your perspective. And what I have discovered the more that I've worked this program is that my perspective is everything. My perception is my reality. And that if that changes, everything changes. As soon as I'm willing to have a different perspective. You know, if I don't see my eating as a problem, then I'm never going to change my eating. If I'm willing to acknowledge that it's problematic, then I have to believe that it's possible to change my diet. Then, if I'm willing to embrace the possibility that there's new information out there, that there are alternative methods, and at the sort of more esoteric extent of that scale, that even within myself, there are latent aspects of consciousness waiting to be awakened. If I'm willing to consider that, then change is possible. This is what this is. We're dealing with a program of change. That's the function of this. A facility, a tool to move you from one state of being to another state of being. Where it becomes distinct from any kind of personal development program that I've ever been involved in is that at its core is the acknowledgement that all of the problems that I experience are of my own making and have as their kind of centripetal object self-obsession, self-centeredness. And that what's profound about that is it eventually beautifully allies with far more mystical traditions, such as, like, you know, sort of most obviously Buddhism, that my fundamental problem is my belief that I am me. My fundamental problem is my entrenched sense of self. That, yeah, I can get over drugs and alcohol, not by fixating on drugs and alcohol, but by looking at what is it that requires the addiction? What does the wanting want? Where is this coming from? And once I've admitted there's a problem, come to believe that it could change, and become willing to turn my life and will over to the care of God as I understand God, then I am now in a position to begin to understand my patterns and habits a little more accurately.